Hello, everybody. Welcome to Revere Electric's webinar on Rockwell's integrated architecture. My name is Ken Foster, and I'll be today's moderator. Today's topic is what's new and what's next in integrated architecture for 2023. And the presenters are George Cady and Lloyd Woods. George is our integrated architecture business lead, working with Revere Electric for 13 years, and has extensive experience working with customers on automation applications, primarily with programmable automation controllers and advanced electronic operator interface. Lloyd is our automation specialist for software and programmable automation controllers, working with Revere Electric for 4 years. They're both here today to talk about what's new and coming within Rockwell Automation's integrated architecture. So with that, I'll turn this over to George and Lloyd.
Thank you, Ken. So first, we'll just have a brief look at the agenda here, and I won't dwell or spend too much time here, but just to give you an idea that we're going to start with the Rockwell FactoryTalk Hub and then move into some of the more hardware-centric offerings that are new in integrated architecture. So the Rockwell FactoryTalk Hub, this is Rockwell's purview, if you will, into software as a service, which is enabled by the cloud. And if you're familiar with Rockwell software and you kind of understand how they have design suite offerings, operation suite offerings, and maintenance suite offerings, you'll see it's still kind of in the same basket, but now they're considered hubs. So there'll be interlinked pieces of software, if you will, that can then show how the thread is connecting all of them. For today's presentation, we're going to focus on the Design Hub, as currently it's the most fleshed out of all the offerings. So Design Hub consists of the Design Studio, the Optix Studio, Twin Studio, Vault, and Remote Access. We'll go into each of these individually and kind of go through how it lays out and connects to other parts of the system. So now with Design Studio, with FactoryTalk Vault, we have secure cloud-native centralized storage for your engineering teams, so that you're spending less time looking for files and making sure you have the most current file, and more time actually doing the work in a collaborative method with the rest of your team members. Vault allows sharing across teams and it provides a single source of truth for everyone to work off of. There's also role-based access controls that you can use to view, download, or change files. It also has version control features that helps to ensure that you're on the latest version, and a project history to kind of give you details on when changes were made and who did those changes. There are also a suite of integrated design tools and some basic analytics to just give you additional information into your files. You can actually go to the next one, George. Thank you. All right, next, we're going to be looking at the Design Studio. Next. Within FactoryTalk Design Studio, you have a new cloud-native software product that's been built from the ground up. And this is to make an easier transition to having just this digital thread way of looking at things. And so within this, they're also integrating modern software development workflows and tried and true automation design into one. So you have your traditional controls engineers and what they're accustomed to in terms of designing for a controller. But now we're bringing in some of the more generally recognized and accepted practices of just good software engineering practices, and bringing that into that's things like version control, getting used to considering things as objects and object-oriented programming, and understanding inheritance and things of that sort. So it's definitely merging the two, because as we look at where technology is going today, that is kind of where things are headed. The system models also can be abstracted from using controllers in a way that you have to be controller specific for your programs and your projects. You can design at a higher level and not necessarily have those details be a primary focus of your early project design. Also with this, there are no installs required. All this is done through your browser. All this is running in the cloud. Looking at some of the general availability features of Design Studio, we've got the integrated version control. So we spoke a little bit on this earlier, but this reduces some of the project change management complexity by now having a log of all project updates, with change tracking, comparisons to kind of understand, what changed, when it changed. Also, there's kind of easy testing because you can kind of have updates, something doesn't work right, roll it back to a previous checkpoint. Again, these things are fairly common in just normal software development design spaces, but still pretty new to the control space, if you will. Multi-user collaboration, so automatically merge changes across multiple users that are working independently. Integrated reusable content libraries, and this reuse is very important in terms of the amount of time you can save from team activities working on the same project, and not everyone having to more or less rebuild the wheel, if you will. You can have multiple controllers in a single project. We'll also talk a little bit about FactoryTalk Smart Objects, and this all gets into that reuse mindset, and not having to create everything from scratch every time, and kind of having default outlays, if you will, to help with achieving your project goals faster and in a simpler manner. Okay, you can go next, George. Okay, so the FactoryTalk Design Studio does share a lot in common with Studio 5000 Logix Designer, but there are a few just very basic differences, and here they're highlighted on the slide for you. So Logix Designer, and what we've been used to, is really on-premise, established, full feature set, and Rockwell has no plans on going away from that. That's a solid product, and it does what it does. Design Studio is sort of the new, you can do it outside of Logix Designer, but there are still elements as of right now that Logix Designer would be required for. But the Design Studio has the benefits of having a SaaS layout, so the software as a service. So you don't have to worry about updates or installs, and more or less you log into it through your browser, and then you just start working. As of right now, it has a very foundational feature set, so it's pretty scaled back to make sure everything's working at a base standpoint. So you're looking at ladder logic, but not necessarily any of the other editors at this time. But it is undergoing frequent iteration, so it's going to see updates a lot more frequently, especially since it's a cloud service-based offering. Next. A little more detail on that, and kind of understanding how Design Studio ties in with the current on-prem Studio 5000 offering. So you can still use Design Studio to manage your project overall, and then more or less move that down to Studio 5000 to then upgrade, to then put onto the controller and load into your local process or your local machinery. In the future, there will be methods that are involved using Design Studio and Logix Echo, what I'll talk a bit upon later on in this presentation, along with remote access to be able to deploy through the cloud for those customers who would have an interest in deploying in that manner. Definitely a time saver. Next. All right, now we're going to jump into Optix Studio. So now FactoryTalk Optix, just Optix, is a new visualization platform by Rockwell. It's really keying on changing the delivery model and some of the feature set, incorporating some of these modern technologies. And this can be, using the same application on a closed terminal, or if you're thinking of traditional ME, SE station and distributed. Optix is kind of coming up with a way of saying, okay, let's develop one application and then be able to deploy it on any of those without having to be specific to that point. So kind of developing an abstraction. So you can use a web browser to design and test HMI projects. And then you also have the same collaboration features we were mentioning with Design Studio. So FactoryTalk Optix, it's open, it's platform independent. It has extensibility options for IoT connectivity, and it has OPC UA at its core. So in terms of being able to connect to it get data from it, push data to it. It's very open, and that's something that's been a point of emphasis for Rockwell over the last few years. Next. Okay, so the Optix, just Optix, if you will, has several system components that are a part of it. So Optix Studio, this is where the environment, the development environment is. So if you're familiar with developing HMI solutions in the Rockwell family now, you can kind of view this as your View Studio. So it's where all the development happens. It also has emulation built in, which if you're familiar with View Designer on the Studio 5000 side, it's kind of related to that, where you can develop and emulate and test kind of all in the same environment. It also has the addition of being able to access anything you have in the FactoryTalk Vault that we briefly mentioned earlier, which is also part of the FactoryTalk Hub cloud-based offering. From that, you've developed your FactoryTalk Optix application that you've built inside the studio. Again, you have the project itself, which is your logic, your objects, and your parameters, and your runtime modules that are necessary to run that specific application. And so then you can deploy it through devices. So there are a couple of ways to do this. You can deploy it locally, as you would now with, say, Studio 5000 and the local controller. But there's also an option to deploy through the cloud, which we mentioned briefly, that would be coming to the Design Studio instance. But now it will be available direct from Optix when you have the Optix hardware, or if you're using Optix on as a PC that's running the runtime, to be able to deploy those applications through the cloud. And that's kind of next level for where Rockwell was going with this. So next in the Hub ecosystem, we have the FactoryTalk Twin Studio. So now the Twin Studio provides a cloud-based way to run applications that you can use for Arena, Logix Designer, FactoryTalk Logix Echo, and Emulate 3D. Just for a brief overview of each of those. So Arena is a program that's used to model and simulate complex business operations. So if you're considering, changing how materials coming into your operations, or certain lines, arranging what's running on a line or where those lines are physically positioned, Arena can help you run some business logic to understand if there are the advantages and disadvantages of making those changes before actually making those changes there in the plant physically. Logix Designer is the Studio 5000 programming environment. Now being able to access it in a virtual machine that's in the cloud helps link all of this together. Logix Echo is the emulation software that's used for control Logix programming, at least for the new ones. Emulate 3D can be used to build models that interact with controls from the control files you've set up. And you can also pull in models that you've set up for other programs as well to have more fidelity in terms of predicting, what are these changes going to affect. And affect all of these together, then you can use to validate upgrades and changes and more or less create your digital twin, thus the name Twin Studio. Next. So we spoke a little bit to this before, how they all kind of tie in. This kind of stretches it out and shows, okay, you kind of start with your feed and your process modeling analysis through demonstration. That's kind of where Arena is. Emulate 3D comes in and then gives you the true physical plant outlay on screen, much like in the prior slide when you could see the actual warehousing operations moving around there. So your demonstration, your system design, your virtual commissioning, operator training, and the full digital twins. And the Logix Echo is the emulation that runs beneath that actually runs the controller logic as if it was on a physical controller. So next, we're going to go into remote access. And the FactoryTalk remote access solution allows for secure communications over the internet. And this also allows for on-demand remote assistance, installation, programming, troubleshooting, and just overall maintenance of remote systems and applications. Users can access the FactoryTalk remote access solution via the browser. and system integrators, machine builders can also use this to kind of have a single, secure, and centralized remote access solution for all of their deployed systems and machines. So now, I'm sorry, there we go. Can you go that slide right there? Thank you. So now, with the remote access solution, there's actually two endpoint solutions, if you will, that can be used with it. So there's the remote access manager, which is always at the head end. That's whoever's going into the system. And then there at the machine or at the plant level, you have the physical hardware, which could be the Stratix 4300 router, or you could have a runtime that runs on a computer at the machine that also handles it. So it's some flexibility there, and mainly just in terms of how you want to set it up. So an OEM or an SI might be more comfortable with having the router as opposed to having the runtime, but it's not out of the question for them to use the PC as well. With the Stratix 4300, you'd have your design, configuration, and diagnostics, and everything kind of connected there. The runtime would then allow you to have design, configuration, and diagnostic software residing on the machine or on the PC that's establishing the remote connection. So now this is important in a way, because if you were in a situation where, maybe, you're far enough away that delays make it a bit uncomfortable or untenable to maintain that connection and do updates or anything through there, you can have your design software deployed locally with the runtime software at the machine and be able to have it all done there. So faster download and upload and editing to the controller, if that's what you were primarily concerned with there. And as far as differentiators compared to other brands of remote access solutions, the big thing is the hub integration. So basically everything I've already spoken to, you'd have access to as well. So the Design Studio, Twin Studio, most importantly, the Vault with all the files. Okay, next. All right, so no, you're okay, you're okay. And so just a recap of everything that's in Design Hub with Design Studio, Optix Studio, Twin Studio, Vault, and Remote Access. Teams of all sizes and skill sets can work smarter through collaborating using this system. So now, again, it's iterating highly and it's growing month over month. So some of the features that you may be used to more of your on-prem solutions won't be there now, but will be being added over time. So how do you get started? Well, first thing you do, sign up for access to the hub. It's free access to get into it. And to start using the Vault to manage your files and to get basic analytics off of it. Just go to this link that are here in the slides. We'll be able to get these to you after the presentation. Sign up for it and then start playing. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to Revere. We'll be happy to assist.
Good news. Thanks, Lloyd. Appreciate the update on the hub capabilities. Next, we're talking about some of the new integrated architecture hardware coming down the line, and wanted to just kind of get our hands around all of the offerings that Rockwell has for HMI. The one in the middle, certainly everyone's familiar with, the PanelView Plus. We're up to PanelView Plus 7, and recently came out with the new Series B. With the ending of CE 6 as a supported by Windows, Rockwell decided to upgrade the Series B to a Windows 10 environment. So what we're gaining out of that is a higher level of performance and higher level of security. Those are the two things that you'd find most capable when you look at the new offering. It is our most popular PanelView operator panel, and it will continue to be available for the coming future. We're probably talking 10 years plus. Extensive support of third-party controllers through Kepware, and allows you to build a pretty rich offering across an assortment of different panels. Second offering is the PanelView 5000. So what we have here is a really tightly integrated operator panel that allows us to leverage some of the capabilities of Studio 5000. And if you've noticed in the Studio 5000 versions since 24 or so, there is a view component. That's really where you start to design the capabilities of your panels for the PanelView 5000. There's two offerings there, the 5310 and the 5510. So one of the differentiators that you might find pretty inviting is to look towards the 5000 for richer graphics and capabilities in terms of automatic diagnostics and the capability to do alarming in Logic's controller. Kind of a unique feature where you're not going to have to go in and design alarms for both the HMI panel, like that you'd have to do in the PanelView Plus 7. You can now do it exclusively in the Logic's controller and have those served up to the PanelView 5000 automatically. So there's a lot of premier capabilities that you'll find intertwined with the panel itself and control logics. And the idea that it's so tightly coupled, there's a lot of automatic things that come up, things like a navigation button that allows you to run through a lot of hierarchical requirements of your screen. So you're not spending development time making go-to type screens where you can just hit buttons, configure as you require, and they're automatically populated. There's a lot of standardization. Other aspects are an emulator that's built in to the FactoryTalk Studio that allows you to emulate the project exactly as it would be, in conjunction with the Echo that Lloyd had mentioned. That allows you to run a complete system checkout before you actually need the hardware. So in today's day and age, that might be useful for a lot of customers. And then lastly, we'll be coming out with, in June, the Optix panel, and that leverages some of the software capabilities of software as a service and the design tools in the cloud, and allows you to deploy that onto a panel that'll be available shortly. So some of the key features that Lloyd had mentioned really look towards native third-party supportability and a lot of the IIoT capable mechanisms to move data to and from, in this case, like an MQTT connectivity. And then embedded in the products automatically are OPC UA server capability with extensive ability to do web clients and then remote management. So that's a look forward to later this year. And coupled to that is kind of an expansion of the HMI as a line controller, plant controller, true HMI, where you've got a distributed system. That's really where we leverage the long-standing capable View SE station along with the distributed model. It leverages all the services that you find in FactoryTalk. That, in conjunction with the FactoryTalk Optix station, are going to be two higher-end capable HMI solutions, with the Optix solutions continuing to evolve towards a true distributed model. You'll notice some of the other aspects of capability in the Optix on the right there is true cloud integration, the idea that you have extensive open scripting through C#, and then we're going to enhance it even further with built-in analytics, dashboarding, and reporting, all part of the Optix solution. Just talking further a little bit more about the Optix, it's new, it's open, scalable visualization. You see the design options where you can you design and test your HMI directly from the browser. You have the collaboration capabilities, version tracking, and dynamically being able to script even at runtime. The deployment options will have a whole flexible host of hardware offerings from panel, station through distributed, and it's kind of a pay-as-you-go capable solution. Very responsive graphics. We're talking about analytics extensively these days at Rockwell, where we want to be able to mine data within the controller, make use of it analytically to make business decisions. Extensive reporting and dashboarding will be a part of that. Extensible options include library management, multiple third-party drivers, really IoT native connectivity, and then the full support of the OPC UA specs. This is the panel itself, just a kind of a quick look. And as we progress through the spring into the summer, we'll have some more information. There will be 2 offerings, the Optix Panel Compact in 4.3 and 7-inch models, and then the Optix Panel Standard, where it'll be 8.4, 15, and then widescreen versions of 7 and 21.5. So look forward to that. We'll be getting our hands on some models, hopefully this spring, and we can pass those around as required for evaluation. Moving along, there's been some changes in the Stratix family of switches. This is the new Stratix 5200 that'll be coming out shortly. Just to pay note, the Stratix 5700 has been with us for a good 7 to 10 years, and it'll be moving towards end of life with expectations of last time buy in the range of next year, sometime late next year. So a parallel offering as we move, kind of migrate through higher functionality with the Stratix 5200, but you'll know that it is still Cisco inside, and that the models that are being offered in the 5200 align tightly with what is being currently offered in the 5700. So it is a fixed, non-modular managed switch in port sizes of 6, 10, and 20. It is a layer 2 firmware switch with offerings in both base or full feature firmware, including NAT and DLR capabilities. It also offers the 5700 feature set, including the iOS that we typically are seeing in the Cisco solutions, the latest and greatest, new web interface, parallel redundancy, and then things like secure digital flash as an option, dual power inputs, and it does leverage some of the premier integration that we find with faceplates, add-on instructions, add-on profiles that are part of that Stratix family offering. This is just a kind of a quick cut sheet on what the catalog offerings will be. So it's extensive and capable. So as you require a specific configuration, we can certainly help you with that. Remote access, we want to talk just a little further about what the hardware components will be with that in the Stratix 4300. Lloyd talked about the full functionality these days of what we're going to be offering. And as we move through the family, current offerings are the 2-port and the 5-port. As you can see, the 1783 RA2 TGB and the 5 TGB. As we move through the spring and into the summer, we're going to extend that offering across the ability to do cellular communications and Wi-Fi at various levels and port count sizes. So look forward to being a part of that as we roll these products out later this spring and into the summer. Just a final piece on that connectivity options, the idea that you kind of have 2 paths of source for remote communications, the ability to leverage that Stratix 4300 as a remote access router at the end customer's site, and or making use of an industrial computer or the Optix panel to run the FactoryTalk remote access software. So each of those choices becomes leveraged over your ability to run through the FactoryTalk Hub, as Lloyd had talked about, and being able to access remote machines for maintenance and troubleshooting and upload-download capabilities. This is just a quick peek at what the hub looks like. So as you guys get signed up for the FactoryTalk Hub, you'll make use of your Rockwell credentials as part of the knowledge base and the Tech Connect contracts. And it allows you to go in and access all of the different components that you'll see enhanced and expanded as we move through the capabilities of the hub. I'm looking forward to this as a mechanism for us to be more efficient across the board, leveraging that hub capability. And we'll look forward to seeing you guys online with that. A couple things to note. Rockwell in the last 5 years has acquired a an industrial computer company. The company's name is ASEM out of Europe, and they have an extensive line of PCs that are now tightly integrated to the Rockwell solution. So the point out of this is that if you're in need of an industrial computer, there's a substantial number of combinations. As you can see, we can go through the different processor selections, the different RAM size, and a whole host of storage capabilities and OSs that we can support. We can help you with configuring any kind of PC that you might require. There's a whole host of new awesome 6300 industrial computers tailor-made for your applications. So starting up on the left, you've got the 6300B. That's an Intel I-class wall mount PC box. We also have book style in the 6300B. So you've got something small and concise over in the lower left here. This guy is the Atom class book style. So a lot of what Rockwell's doing these days has to do with edge communications. So sitting at the machine or at the cell or the beginning of the line, a lot of smaller computers are used to utilize and grab data for IT capable applications that might leverage that data. So that's really where we start with the smaller versions. We can go up with capabilities in the wall style or the book mount style. And then extending beyond that, we've got the 6300P industrial panels. So this is combination, computer and monitor in one. We see a lot of offering towards that end with different characteristics that you'll be able to leverage for the industrial environment, and then monitors. So it's either monitors or industrial panels themselves. This is the layout of the 6300P family. So you can see everything from aluminum through stainless, various multi-touch and capacitive touch, the environmental capabilities that it holds, and then the various sizes that you can leverage. We do have a tool called Proposal Builder. A lot of you probably leverage that for configuring Rockwell products. We can help you with that, but you'll note the extensibility of all of the different things that you can configure, and we can work with you on that. Here's the monitors. Similar characteristics with pretty extensive offering across a lot of different environmental requirements, and then different types of monitors, whether it's aluminum, stainless, with the multi-touch and capacitive touch capabilities, and a whole host of different sizes. So look forward to working with you on your industrial computer needs. Spoke a little bit about the edge and the embedded edge, and what Rockwell's concept is to be able to have compute power right at the machine or the line. So having close proximity of data for computing purposes, for analysis, being able to move large amounts of data in real time, and allowing you to make more informed decisions. Along with this is reduced storage costs. So we're not upfront moving data across spans of areas and bringing them to big data centers. We kind of keep it a little more localized, make decisions and analysis right at the source. And then finally, access control, being able to lock down, secure, and authenticate any kind of activity that might occur between the plant floor, the machine, the cell, and that computer that's doing the data gathering. With that, the embedded edge has kind of an overall common architecture and platform capability. What we're looking at is enhancements in the field of analytics and access. So there's edge compute modules that'll plug directly into the control logic's backplane. There's also the standalone computers that would allow us to leverage that. But in our case, we're going to present you with the new compute module, but take advantage of things like being able to write APIs, the analytics we mentioned, do machine learning, leverage the digital twin. You can deploy low code applications or enable dashboards, and all of this you'll find easily configured through the Studio configuration tool. And that really lends itself to this edge compute. So think of this really as a industrial design computer that sits on the backplane, hosting a lot of different operating systems. Not only does it come with Windows 10, but a whole host of different Linux offerings. So imagine being able to do high-speed computing, data secure analyzation, and then being able to ready that information that you're gathering for the cloud and infrastructure and present that to some IT capable systems. These are just a few of the use cases allowing for enablement of HTML web-based HMI. We talk, dashboarding, the OPC UA capable, MQTT comms, allowing it to be a gateway for the cloud, data collection and visualization, and C# extendability. One note to talk through is the process control part of the Rockwell offering, and you probably know that that offering as PlantPAx. It's our DCS, our distributed control system. The PlantPAx solution really offers the tenets of capability in the process space. It's extremely scalable. It's very flexible. All of the connectivity that you find with logic solutions now embedded in a process solution. It has standard redundancy or high availability capacity and extensive security capabilities with the visualization offerings that you'd find in a standard, typical DCS. So with that, there's a new offering out there for high availability I/O, capable of simplex and duplex redundancy, and a whole host of different capabilities in terms of I/O offering. It's called the 5015 I/O. It's over on the lower right here. Rockwell's process I/O solutions are pretty extensive. We've got the 1715 over on the upper left here, and its capability to do simplex, duplex, and redundancy. And then we look towards the standard 1756. So when you're doing a process control system, you typically would leverage the capabilities of the Logix architecture to do that. And you can use standard high-end 1756 I/O to accomplish that. We also have the Flex I/O in the 5094 format. So you're familiar probably with the 1794. Extensive capability in the 5094 I/O structure that's geared towards process applications. And then finally, the 5015, the brand new offering called the 5015 or the HA style. That HA style of I/O is fault tolerant, redundant with universal I/O. I think the unique offering here is not only can it perform standard I/O functions in process, but it also can do safety systems within this architecture. You'll also note that there's some universal configurable modules so that you can configure an I/O module to be discrete or analog as you require for the application. So it really starts to mirror closely what the expectations are of a DCS. Additionally, some new technologies that are across the industry supporting IEC 61131 is IO-Link. Rockwell has offered for the past few years a couple of masters, one in the point IO format and one as a armor block IO master link. So if you're familiar with IO-Link, it is a worldwide open standard for peer-to-peer communications, serial communications, and it allows really for enhanced capabilities that you can gain from your sensors and actuators. It does support standard sensors as a capability, but the idea is to gain more diagnostics and configuration, more diagnostics from your devices, but also be able to configure them to do what you require on that wire. Everything in the IO-Link technology world is portable to Ethernet IP. So as you gather data within that structure, you can move it through Ethernet IP. That new offering we're talking about is the Armor Block 5000 I/O master and module. You'll see this as the next generation on machine I/O block with embedded I/O link technology. Really does bump up your game for benefits in real-time diagnostics, helping you with increased uptime and productivity. And there's also additional advantages with high current channels for outputs. And it's truly highly integrated to the Logix structure in that you can drop it into the I/O tree and make use of that tight integration. We're spanning the whole breadth of products. We go from PlantPAx down to the microcontrollers. If you're familiar with Class 1 implicit messaging, that is the structure that Logic uses to talk to devices over Ethernet IP. When you make a decision to buy a controller, you have that capacity within Logix. Typically, the microcontrollers like MicroLogix did not have the ability to attach remote devices to it. It was all kind of onboard, on backplane. So with the advent of the 850 and the 870, we are now supporting Ethernet IP devices, up to 8 of them for that controller. And there's some pretty good capabilities to allow you to talk to Kinetics 5100 servo drive, the PowerFlex 523 or 525, and it's pretty easily configurable in with some faceplates, making use of the connected components workbench software to configure devices that would allow you to talk over Ethernet IP. There's some limitations, as you can see, 8 devices limitations, but we're starting to find some adoption for the Micro 800 family of controllers, and this is just a nice enhancement that could fit some applications for you down the road. Lastly, keep track of Revere's services capabilities. We are an authorized Rockwell service provider with a whole extensive team of project engineers, application engineers, and consultants to help you in various needs that you might have, everything from network analysis and network implementation and design through software design. We leverage a lot of the support that Rockwell affords us with their capable engineers, but this is kind of an also that would help you move through any requirements you might have. Certainly training has always been something we've provided, and then safety assessments. If you have an opportunity to need a risk assessment, we can help you with that as well. With that, I think that's it. So I can leave that up. Any other comments or thoughts, questions? We'd be glad to answer them now.
Well, thanks, George and Lloyd. So thank you for attending, and make sure that you visit Revere's Virtual Education Center for additional webinars.